Yeah.
And I think you can start looking at all our buildings and see that as the next opportunity. We need to think of new ways to bring nature into the urban space. I'm a facade engineer, and I'm always thinking about how we can use existing constructive systems for buildings and kind of adapt them and bolt on nature. I kind of realised the vertical was an untapped resource because cities are so dense. And greening is really important because more and more people are moving into our cities, so we need to create better environments for them. We've lost 97% of the meadows in the UK since 1930. 97%. And for me, the idea of bringing it back and kind of educating people about it is part of getting people to recognise the value of it.
Habitat loss to urban areas can't be restored as it was. But Alistair's approach offers opportunity for native plants to return in a different way, by growing directly on the walls of buildings. Not only does that bring greenery back into the city, it creates habitat for the birds, insects, and other creatures that once lived there.
I think these are my favourites. They're normally the earliest flowering species. This is what supports the pollinators in cliff zones. So very exciting that we've been able to reproduce it in our own little cliff.
The cliff, in this case, is the outside of Alistair's office in London, which serves as his laboratory and a stepping stone for insects and birds passing through the city. Each vertical meadow contains a diverse mix of native plants that are grown on site.
Most living wall systems are not about seasonality, it's just about keeping green. What we're doing is creating a seasonal living wall.
Alistair's meadows aren't just pretty flowers. They're a natural mix of plants one would find in the wild in this region, and they change throughout the year.
All of this kind of messiness and kind of brownness is part of life. You've got this kind of a mixed sward of kind of leaves, grasses, etc., which allows space for all these kind of critters to grow in. It's actually building that ecological world. The great thing about wildflowers is that they don't need much water, and they'll pretty much grow in any condition, which when you're trying to grow vertically is perfect.
Alistair designed a metal cladding system as a permanent fixture and a temporary wrap meant for construction sites. Both repurpose existing engineering systems to work in new ways. This wrap contains a layer of waterproof backing, recycled clothing, sea paper, and reusable tubes that deliver water. The leftover water from irrigating the plants is then fed back into the system. Together, the two options allow many available wall spaces to become a bit of habitat in the city.
So this will be on a construction site, and this mat will be installed in an hour maximum. And you've got about 10 meters of living wall ready to go. We've chosen about 25 species to ensure that they're actually the same sort of plants that would have lived there anyway.
Alistair gets his seeds from the largest producer of native wildflower seeds in the UK, one who shares his passion for innovation and restoring biodiversity.
I've been a botanist all my life, and I've been growing wild species for 43 years. We use hand harvesting to collect stock seed of pure species. The flower species are important because they support the invertebrates and they support the birds.
Unlike single-species crops like ryegrass, which blanket much of the UK, Donald's meadows contain many different species of native plants. That greater variety supports more species of insects and other animals. And the genetic variety present in wild populations offers a crucial additional benefit.
The biodiversity here within this field is huge. There's a range of up to 50 species here, and each species has got a huge range of variation, so the population is able to respond to changing environment and conditions.
Donald and his daughter rely on a herd of Shire horses to help manage the vegetation on the family farm.
They have a preference for grasses over flowers, as opposed to sheep, which have a preference for eating flowers. And we manage them by moving them from field to field as a herd. What we've done over the years is develop a methodology and to show that it's possible to restore a species poor grassland to a species rich grassland.
Now, his seeds are doing something similar in cities.
It may not be a meadow like we have here. It'll be something different that's suited to the urban setting and can contribute to ecosystem services, providing within the city clean air, water, pollinator services.
By supplying the seeds to Alistair, Donald is establishing plants in the city that will provide habitat and food for butterflies, birds, and other animals. If enough meadow is planted, they'll create wildlife corridors throughout the city. Scarlett Weston is working with Alistair to build what she calls bee lines, part of a larger network of corridors she's helping to develop across Great Britain.
Most species of solitary bee can only travel 300 meters. If they don't have a flower to land on, they will not have the energy to continue that flight. By having these stepping stones of wildflowers along the route, they can move through the landscape.
Yeah, come and have a look. Come and have a look.
Yeah,
There we are.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
For Alistair, vertical meadows are a way for cities to become more connected to the natural world.
Actually, what will come out of it in maybe 10 years' time is a completely different kind of habitat. And that's quite exciting. We've got to be adaptive in our view of what nature is.
All right, so pretty great, right?
The vertical really does
I think
offer.
it's a cool way to think about, like, you know, I think sometimes environment and talking about the environment can be like sad or like there's a lot going on. And so it's always nice to remember that there's people on the ground doing amazing things. And so I want to bring up the panel from the Fruitful Community Foundation, who is going to talk a little bit about what they're doing here in Georgia around landscaping and so much else that they'll be talking about. So let's welcome them up.
Testing. All right. I'm going to stay out of the way of the kitchen staff so I don't get ran over. I'm going to stand. You guys all have a seat. Is there a way to get the slideshow just to roll through? Like it could just
Test.
How's everyone doing?
Hello.
Good? Enjoying some food and some beverage. I keep thinking
think so.
tonight's Friday night because I'm having a cocktail. Who am I kidding? I have a cocktail almost every night. That's how I roll. I am Jamie Rosenthal. I am the founder of the Fruitful Community Foundation and also the operator and founder of Roots Down organization. I want to share with you guys like a journey and tell you guys a story about how this all came to be, because a lot of this is really interesting information and a mission. Really, you see the end results and you think of like the clean, like, oh, there's the end results, everything happened in one way. No, it was a lot. It was crazy and really amazing to actually watch this be born. This all started with an idea and a concept that I wanted to explore. I really wanted to shift the paradigm of what is possible in the landscaping industry, right? It's a huge industry. I come from an urban ag background, but we don't really talk a lot about what is possible in our green spaces as far as like all the grassy fields and all the lawns and all those things that are not very productive. So I really wanted to shift the paradigm of what is possible in public green spaces, how they're planted, how they're maintained, and how they're used by the community. Again, I was a farmer, so I came back to the city looking at, and I love the city. The urban place is where I want to be. It's where I want to live the rest of my life. In fact, my wife and I are going to move to New York one day, and I hope to make change there. But when I came back to the city, when I came back to Atlanta, I had like farmer glasses on, and I kept looking at landscapes, all these maintained landscapes, a workforce that is working in the hot sun. I'll start rolling through some images. Working in the hot sun to maintain what? Landscapes that actually don't give a whole lot back to our community, don't give a whole lot back to the environment. And I was like, surely we could do better with all of our money. The landscaping industry is a $140 billion industry, right? Urban ag has a fraction of that money, right? So there's a big possibility. I was like, what if all of our public spaces could have fruit trees and pollinator habitat and support regenerative practices in our landscape? What if, right? Well, I thought about the outcomes. I'm really focused on both three things, right? The triple bottom line, the fiscal, social, and environmental impacts that it can have, that our landscapes in everyday use can have. DeKalb County was a very willing guinea pig or test kitchen to start all these ideas and theories. I started working with Commissioner Ted Terry, and we started doing some really great work thinking about the ideas of where these landscapes would be a great pilot, or where we could have a really great pilot to showcase this idea. Public libraries came into focus, right? The library seemed like a really amazing place, and I want to thank Commissioner Ted Terry and his office. Miranda's here. I'm here. I work for his office too. We'll talk more about that later. Commissioner Marita Davis Johnson, because we did 7 pilots at the public libraries showcasing what sustainability in the landscaping field could look like. We started, again, this was all about planting the seed. We started building the potential. We onboarded and educated the maintenance teams, facilities management. We have Rodney Reese in the building. He's working with us. I told you I'd call you out. So we worked on actually building the capacity for change, because it doesn't just start with building the landscapes. We put the landscapes in, right? But guess what happened time and time again? We put the landscapes in because of bad maintenance and bad protocols. They got mowed down or they got sprayed, right? Really, landscapes and the environment that we're trying to build are really just a weed whacker away from being destroyed. So we played a really pivotal role. Roots Down, when we started this work, played a pivotal role in what that model would look like. We started building out what partners do we need to actually make this a viable change. What are we going to do to protect the ecosystems and the beautiful landscapes we were building at these libraries? And how can we actually potentially change? Again, this is supposed to just kind of slide through. You can see some of the before and afters. Stark differences. That is the Clarkson Library right there. Stark differences. And I think I feel like we did a really good job of trying to showcase what is possible by including a lot of biodiversity, plants. Erosion is the largest issue, I think, with these landscapes. A lot of bare soil. So we wanted to institutionalize vision, and tonight we're going to welcome a valid partner in carrying this torch and making all this really awesome work happen. I want to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Falcone. She is the executive director of the Fruitful Community Foundation, and she is here to talk about what the Fruitful Community's role is to actually carry this mission on.
Hello. So I'm very new to Fruitful Communities Foundation, so nice to see all of you out here today. So the doctor in my title is not like a medical doctor. I'm an anthropologist, and I teach anthropology actually at the University of West Georgia. And I've spent a lot of my career living and working with people from across different cultural settings. I myself have lived in rural areas and major metropolitan centers like New York. And when my husband and I moved to Atlanta, we settled and actually eventually were able to buy our first home, right? And one of the things that we had been really concerned about was trying to have a very different kind of a yard, right? And so we decided to tear up all the grass, to plant fruit trees and as many native plants as we could, and totally transform the landscape at our home. And when we first started digging in the dirt and putting things in, it was dense clay soil that, you know, seemed fairly barren. There wasn't a lot of life on the property. But it hasn't taken much time. We moved in 2015, and now here we are, and we have left the leaves every year. We have, you know, decided to avoid any pesticide use. And so all that kind of stuff got us plugged into, okay, in this tiny little patch of land that we have some control over, in this suburban area where we are, you know, on a street with tons and tons of other people who have these little tiny parcels of land, what can we do, right? What can we do to change our little corner of the world? And lo and behold, this man and his family moved in across the street, and we got connected on the basis of our yard, right? And started to realize that we had a lot in common in terms of the way that we see ourselves as potential land stewards, and
we
also
had yard envy.
Yeah,
We looked at your yard and we're like, we're going to do better than that.
and you did. You definitely one-upped us. So, but it really was sort of an eye-opening option it was an eye-opening experience into thinking about how we can sort of change the culture around how we interact with not just our yards, but our urban spaces and everything else. I'm an anthropologist by training, so as I said, I've worked all over the world, and I teach students about cultural practices and diverse ways of living around the world. And I just wanted to share a snapshot about how this connected to my life as an educator. In the classroom, we were talking about environmental anthropology, which is really thinking about how cultural patterns shape the way that humans interact with their environments over time and can lead us to interact in very specific kinds of ways. So I'm just going to read you a little quote. There are studies that demonstrate that 23% of land in urban spaces is dedicated to lawns, and that percentage is growing. The vast majority of those lawns are sprayed with fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. Because these chemicals wash into waterways, lawns have an enormous collective environmental impact. So we know this, right? That monoculture, grass, chemicals, dumping into our environments is not a good thing. But here's the anthropological insight, right? So one of the strongest indicators of intensive and toxic land care was not a lack of knowledge about the environmental impacts of these products, but how well they knew the names of their neighbors. Now let me explain this. This means that the people who most care about the people in their communities around them are the ones who are making choices with their own little parcels of land that have this negative impact on those same community members that they care about and want, to reach out to and build relationships with, right? And so I see this as an enormous opportunity for us to begin to change the way that people think and interact with the world around them. And that's where Fruitful Communities comes in. Our foundation, our nonprofit organization, is educationally oriented, and we have a number of programs that kind of fall under the umbrella of the foundation. We have our Green Hive Youth Leadership Program, which one of our panelists here, Taylor, is going to talk about in just a minute. We have our Growers Program to train and educate landscapers, professional landscapers, in how to tend these landscapes so that once they're installed, they don't get destroyed and sprayed and return back to the sort of barren state we were trying to rescue them from in the first place. And we also have liaisons with our community partners. We have Angel here from the Jane Goodall Institute's Roots and Shoots program. Whoop, whoop. And we have our legislative collaborators and partners here with Miranda and, of course, Jamie and his other hat working with Ted Terry. So yeah, and I'm just going to pass the torch because, as I said, I'm new to the foundation, and the folks who have been involved in creating these programs and running these programs and doing the programs are going to do a lot better job explaining them than I am. So I'm going to pass the torch to Taylor.
I think you did awesome.
Oh, well, thanks.
I'm kind of impressed. Yes, go ahead, Taylor. So you've been a Green Hive cohort once. You helped teach a cohort, and now you're helping lead a cohort. at GSU. We have a GSU member in the audience. Do we have any more GSU cohort? No, no one else showed up. John, you're the only one. So Taylor, you've been there from the beginning, and one of the goals for the Green Hive Leadership Program, right, was to build leadership and thought leadership in this space, which is really important. And Taylor has done an amazing job. Taylor, take it away. Tell us about the Green Hive.
Okay, I'm going to talk really, really soft because this is very loud. So my name's Taylor. As Jamie mentioned just a second ago, I did actually participate in our pilot program of the Green Hive Leadership. I will be honest, my earliest memory of anything environmental goes back to my grandparents, because my mom is from Carolina and we have farmland up there. So I remember we never went grocery shopping. We would just get sent bins of fruits and vegetables to Georgia from Carolina. So entering into the program, I saw it one-sided because of my experience. So knowing Jamie and just going through the program, I learned so much about land maintenance that I never knew previously. It's actually interesting of how you can incorporate educational programs, especially while you're going through school, particularly college students, because we're more impressionable at the times. But honestly, it was a great experience of just learning how the practices that we're doing day to day influence our environment, influence how we feel, how do we go about our days. And you have to really take the time to learn yourself on all of the things that are happening, as Elizabeth said, around us. There's a lot of things happening right now, but something we can do that is in our control is maintain and sustain our environment, because it feeds us, we should feed it back. A little bit more about the program. So as you go through the programs, the students are hearing from speakers who are actually working in legislative and policy settings, farmers who are actually tending to grounds. They're attending events, both local and some that we do actually travel to, but they're actually connecting with different people from different parts of the state to learn different ways that we can all contribute to shifting the paradigm of, again, how we sustain our land, our landscapes. So one thing I will say is going through the program, it's very challenging because you have to bring so many broad ideas and kind of focus them into one message and one project. At the time of the first program, the cohort, we had 3 schools. So for this current cohort that we're going through right now, it's exclusively only Georgia State students. So it is really interesting to see perspectives of when we had multiple schools down to one school and how they are working from different departments, different majors, and kind of gravitating towards one cohesive project. I don't want to spill it because they have their graduation on Monday of what their project is, but essentially they will be taking more active roles of actually starting and planting seeds at Georgia State, but not only at Georgia State, but to influence other schools to pick up the program as well and teach the same stewardship to all of the students. So I think it's really interesting of how they're essentially taking, can I talk about that?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
I don't think anybody here is going to attend the graduation. Me and you, John, we'll be there.
Well, essentially the project kind of focused on how they can send their own message about what they're doing at Georgia State. So Georgia State is actually funding another round of the program at the school. So yay us, we just got that in. So essentially they're getting the word out, but they're also starting in the process of starting their own chapter at Georgia State. So again, once the program continues on into the next cohort, we'll have more chapters coming in and bringing those other schools back into the program. The project solely focused on how they can, so messaging through design and art is part of how you shift people's minds and persuade them to think otherwise or to actually evaluate different perspectives. Something I thought interesting in their project was how they actually took the time to create these little flowers in which they have like QR codes on the flowers. They like actually created the flowers and they're gonna post them all around campus, and they have a website tied to it to actually present their policy initiatives in their little memo, so that you can actually see what they're working on, what we're doing, how they're gonna actually start planting in the community garden, part of Georgia State Sustainability Department. So it's all kind of tying in together again to how do we educate students while they're still in school. It would be even better if we can get them as early as pre-K, because if we're instilling that foundation in them of this way of thinking, then as they grow up and they go to college or maybe a trade, they're actually taking those same practices and that knowledge with them. But I don't want to talk for too long.
Yeah, you did great explaining it. Thank you, Taylor. I think it's extremely important to involve that age group. If you guys don't know, that age group, climate anxiety is a thing, and that age group is feeling it more than ever because they're looking to us, like the policymakers, the people that push policy, the people that are more involved politically and making the decisions, usually like the 40 and above, right? They're looking to us to make these big decisions for them. So it's really great to actually put some of the ownership or some of the, some of the leadership values into them so they can actually focus on how to make change. Environmentalism doesn't have to be saving the forest. It doesn't have to be saving the waterways. It could be saving the areas that we live in, one small area at a time. And I think that's one of the premise of the teaching for the Green Hive Leadership Program. I want to invite Sonia Tyler. She's been a friend and a compadre. She's been there thick and thin. She's a board member for the Fruitful Community Foundation. And we're going to talk about the Growers Program, which when I thought about the Fruitful Community Foundation, we talked about what is needed in the foundation to make change and to actually keep this change going and not let anything slip. And the Growers Program is one of those big things. So Sonia, tell them all about the Growers Program.
Hey everybody, as he said, oh hi. So as he said, my name is Sonia Tyler. I consider myself a green mama. I've raised my children in learning how to respect and love the environment. I was born in Paris, France, grew up in Saudi Arabia. I'm half Congolese, half American, and I've had the opportunity to experience and explore the world and see all of its landscapes. So I love people, and people need places to live. So we need to protect those places. So it was a tremendous honor to meet Jamie when he was working with Roots Down and to start working with them because I was working at the libraries at that time. And they, of course, put these installations, these 7 pilots in.
We stole you from the libraries.
Yeah, man. Woo.
And you went back to the cab.
Yeah, DeKalb County. At that time, I was working for the libraries, and I was extremely interested in what was happening. Installing is one thing, right? But once you install, what happens? How do you maintain these places? How do you maintain these spaces? And with the grower program, or with these spaces, we recognized very quickly that the landscapers did not understand how to properly maintain these landscapes. They didn't know the difference between a weed and collard greens. They didn't really understand why it was important not to utilize pesticides. Many of them, we discovered, had been landscaping for years, 20, 30 years. They were professionals in this space, not one of the many that turns over. And they were shocked when they discovered the why of what we're doing. They had no idea what they were doing. I don't know if you know this, but here's a fun, terrifying fact. The CDC says that landscaping is one of the 10 most dangerous professions in the United States. One of the 10 most. I mean, y'all nodding your head like you knew that already. That blew my mind, but think about it. Think about, right now it's pollen season, right? And a lot of people are suffering from their allergies. But with the particulate matter that comes with mowing and blowing, with all of the pesticides and herbicides that are put, all these chemicals in the soil, before you can even walk into your home or your children are walking into school, they're inhaling all of these things that have been proven to be found in your body that destroys you afterwards, right? So the Growers Program was designed to teach these landscapers how to properly tend their land. And for us, the people are extremely important. In this industry, many landscapers are not paid a living wage. They are working in extremely difficult circumstances. They suffer from medical conditions. And once they can no longer work, it's not like they have any type of protections, if, in fact, they even have any type of benefits. How many of you guys know your landscaper's name in the building? Show of hands. Oh, 5 of you. That's nice.
Oh, my God. That is good. It's a good number.
That's really good. But, many of us don't know their names. When we see them, we don't even think about getting water for them. And that's just us as someone who hires them as a service. Think about their management, who might also not have them in the best circumstances to perform and be healthy and be happy. With that being said, we put together this program, and it teaches the why, it teaches the how, it helps them understand, natives versus invasives. It really helps them understand. One of my favorite moments was when we did our first cohort for facilities management in DeKalb County. All of these guys came in with their hands crossed. They just were like, what are these people going to be talking to me about? This is a waste of time. I got to do now. And slowly, as we were going through this program, they were just becoming extremely engaged, very interested, asking many, many questions, understanding and looking at their profession and job in a completely different way. By the time it was finished, we understood for real, how important it was. In DeKalb County, they hire vendors to handle all of these different spaces. And these vendors are, in the past, but thanks to Commissioner Ted Terry and the work that we're doing within the Board of Commissions, in the past, they were not encouraged to use electric equipment. They were not mandated not to use chemicals. They were taught to prune in a particular way that is not natural and conducive to natural habitats. And it's difficult when they're contracted by the government to change those things very quickly. So we had a lot of experience trying to fix what we installed. The installations were beautiful. Some were maintained better than others, but we had to go through all of the problems with them. So we're very proud of it. It is growing. We really would like for people to be a part of it. We partnered with Georgia Piedmont Technical College in Clarkston, Georgia, so anybody can take the course, but we would really love for corporations to do that. It's about a 4-hour course. If you want to take it by yourself online, 1 hour. But if me and him are there, we don't talk through it all a lot. And then afterwards, they're able to go in real life and learn how to better practice their profession. There's so many little things that you can do that can help the environment. One of them, for example, is instead of mowing all the way down to the ground, leave it up about 3 inches. It doesn't bother anything for you to do that. And these are the types of things we were teaching them. If people want to maintain their lawns the way they've always been traditionally, you can do that, but still maintain healthier practices and better practices. But did I answer?
Yeah,
did I talk about
all the questions. I mean,
grower program?
I'm like sitting here like a proud father of this idea, because you just like 2.5 years ago we're like, why landscaping, Jamie? What and
what is this?
It's amazing, but the opportunity, I think the opportunity to show that there is a big resource, $140 billion resource, right, to help change our planet. And think of the workforce that we have out there in every single landscaper, in every mom and pop company. Think of if all the landscapers changed to more of an earth stewardship program. It'd be amazing.
Highways, government buildings. Yeah, you're a genius, homie. You're a genius.
Yeah, I mean, we've created a sterile environment. If like the real crap were to hit the fan, we would have nowhere to grow food because our soils are dead. Our soils in our urban areas are dead. We're going to have to move out of the urban areas. I think we have a really good possibility of regeneration here, right here in our urban areas. And I think the landscapers can lead that cause. And it's not the stick that's going to get them, it's the carrot. It's actually giving them a solution, helping them with education, helping them with money to switch to electric. So powerful. Well, good job, Sonia. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna introduce Angel. She's with Roots and Shoots, Jane Goodall Institute. Everyone here knows who Jane Goodall is. I hope to God you do. Yes, yes. Give a bigger clap. She's my environmental hero, and I got to meet her thanks to all your organization and all the wonderful people that we've worked with, and plant a tree with her last year. It was like the best thing. I felt like that moment. I'm like, I could die right now, and everything would be fine. And we started working with their organization and talking a little bit about like what would it be. We need partners. We need strong partners to help this movement go and help it actually be sustainable. So I am so proud to have Angel here. And Angel, you want to tell them a little bit about Roots and Shoots?
Sure. Thank you, Jamie. As Jamie said, I'm Angel Cooper, and like Elizabeth, I'm relatively new to my role, which is the Atlanta Base Camp Coordinator for Roots and Shoots, which is one of the many programs under the Jane Goodall Institute. Roots and Shoots empowers people, particularly young people, to make a difference in their communities. We teach them to use their voice and their ideas to become change agents. Many of the projects that they do are community gardens, but they don't have to be. They don't even have to be necessarily environmental projects, but they do have to help people, animals, and the environment. The program has been around for many years. It started in Tanzania and is now in all 50 states and 60 countries. And thanks to our partnership with Fruitful Communities, we are here to grow the program in Atlanta. So I look forward to working with these good people on the panel, and hope that you all will join us in helping to make our communities and our planet a better place.
Awesome. Thank you, Angel. They're going to be doing some stuff at the libraries, DeKalb County Libraries. As you know, we are going to be focusing really hard on DeKalb County Libraries and focusing on doing the Green Library tours. I want to make one, last but not least, introduction to one of my favorite people. I got to work with her as Roots Down. She worked with me. It was just me and you and Trace for a while, kicking it. Miranda is a young advocate, environmental advocate, and everything she has done has been absolutely magical. She was the one that actually crafted the Fruitful Library Resolution, which affects all 23 libraries. It was a big deal, and I was so proud, so proud. But Miranda, now tell us about your work now with Commissioner Ted Terry and what we're doing in DeKalb.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to be here. A lot of exciting work. Thank you for the second clap. I'm here representing Commissioner Ted Terry in his office. I work on his team for his DeKalb Green New Deal. He's currently in a zoning meeting tonight, so he wished he could be here, but I'm very thankful to be here as well. The DeKalb Green New Deal is really an all-encompassing local climate action, people-powered movement. Commissioners have a lot of interesting opportunities to affect and mitigate climate change and really take climate action, and one of them being land use. And I remember when I first started with Roots Down prior to working for Commissioner Terry's office, it was amazing to think about, DeKalb County, they dictate land use, and they also, pay for these landscaping contracts. We have, I believe the libraries alone is 72 acres of land with a building, surrounding a building. And it's really incredible to think about what you can do with what already exists. And I felt very lucky to work on that piece of policy back when I worked with Roots Down. I've kind of viewed policy as a way of, how do we imagine the world that we live in? How do we make solutions possible? And a lot of what we've done in the past just isn't
gonna cut it for the future in our climate that could potentially happen. And so it was really exciting to work on that policy at the time, again, with Roots Down and Commissioner Terry's office, and to now be a part of that office to see it come into play of how can we just rethink about what are we planting there. That's part of policy, which is so crazy about, what trees can you plant in here, and how do we create the world that we live in. So I feel very lucky to be a part of this. And yeah, thank you.
Woo! So that's what we want to see, right? Young people leading policy and writing policy and informing what we actually envision what the future will look like, because they are going to inherit the earth. They're going to inherit the earth after we're gone, after I'm gone, right? And I think it's just really, really important. I really want to say thank you guys. Thank you, GPP. Thank you, Wild Hope. Anyone else we want to thank? Science for Georgia for having Emmanuel's Tavern. Emmanuel's Tavern, what a wonderful place. This neighborhood has changed a lot, but this place has stayed the same, which is really, really, really awesome. If you guys want to know more about the Fruitful Community Foundation, please go on our website, check us out, see what we do. Come to one of our green library tours this year. We'll be continuing this really important work. Libraries are a place where all of us go, right? Young, old, everyone, black, white, every single person in walk-in life goes to a library. If we can affect change there and have that for a projected outcome for other people to emulate, other departments to emulate, then we've done our job. So thank you guys so much.
April 20th, Cantley Library. Be there. Thanks, Jamie. You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
All right, let's give another round of applause to the panel, the Fruitful Community Foundation. They're doing things that sound simple, or you can do it at home in your yard, but I think just all the pieces that have to come together to make it successful, whether it be in your yard or at libraries, there's a lot to that. And part of that is getting legislators on board and agreeing to do these things and believing in what you believe in to make these changes happen. So I'd like to introduce Amy Sharma from Science for Georgia. She's the executive director, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about how we have these ideas. We have this wild hope, and how to kind of make it a reality in our world through advocacy. So this is Amy Sharma.
Hey guys, that's the introduction I needed. Thanks very much. Hi everyone, I'm Amy Sharma. I'm the Executive Director of Science for Georgia. I'm so glad you all could be here. This is a super great event. This is the type of stuff we love to do. So a little bit about me. I went to Duke, so I'm really glad that they're playing tomorrow night. I know all of you have all of your brackets filled out. It's the right crowd for that. My husband was like, no way am I going to see you. There's basketball on tonight. So I spent most of my life as a product manager and a project manager. I worked at the National Science Foundation. So I spent my whole life getting random people to talk to one another, which is a lot harder than you think it would be. So let's shameless plugs for Science for Georgia, because that's why we're all here tonight. I am the executive director. See, yeah, you're going to do that too. Welcome. So Science for Georgia started in 2018. We actually grew out of the March for Science movement. The founders helped organize March for Science in Atlanta. And so we're really trying to make sure that we're building a grassroots network of science-friendly people that think that science can save the world. And we do that in 3 ways. We improve communication among scientists and the public. So we're out there, we're teaching science communication training to local university students, actually all over the state. We've been all over the state. Patrick and I just had a road trip to Augusta 2 weeks ago. It was great. So we do that. We increase public engagement with science. You all tonight are helping us fulfill our mission. Thank you very much. We have Georgia Science Junction, which is the grown-up version of Atlanta Science Tavern, which has been here at Manuel since forever. So we do that. We have climate survival training, which is our newest thing. I'm pointing at Michael as they're eating, because that's how we roll. But Michael is making sure that we're out there rolling up our sleeves and doing things like learning to plant native species and how to repair solar panels and all sorts of things. And then we do fun things like science stand-up comedy. So that's us. And then the reason we were asked to be here tonight is, you know, we're down at the Capitol advocating for the responsible use of science and public policy. If you've been paying attention, today is Sine Die, so it's the last day of the Georgia legislative session. Don't cry, it's not sad. My emails have just been like off the rails today. So so tomorrow there will be a bunch of lobbyists just drinking. Because it's been a ride. As you can tell, we're trying to teach science to Georgia public officials, which is just fun. Yeah, thanks for the clapping. The things I've had to explain that I was like, really, you needed to know that dumping human feces on our cropland is bad for our health, but I had to write a one-pager on that. Don't do it, guys. Don't do it. And I also, Patrick wants me to say this. We host an environmental justice and climate protection conference. So we do this every year. We're down on the coast this year. We host this with a bunch of our partners. So this is really how we get community members and public policymakers and activists together to really create change. So we're going to go back to like high school civics, or I think actually 8th grade, maybe 4th grade. I think my kids are learning right now who the governor is. But let's remember how the government works, so that way we can make change in effective manners. So we are a federalist system. So the federal government has the most power in the U.S., and then the states, and then the local municipalities. So they have the most power, but at the same time, the people in the neighborhood running, like Commissioner Ted Terry, are the ones that are making the biggest day-to-day impact on your life. I mean, Congress hasn't passed a bill in like 5 years. I don't know. Yeah, right? So the Georgia General Assembly is passing like 30 today, and half of them will end up in lawsuits. So, but if you think about it, we all know who Joe Biden is, right? We know who our senators and representatives are. If you guys didn't pay attention to the senatorial election in 2020, really? And now, but do you, any of you know who your state senators and representatives are? I mean, we've said Ted Terry's name like 16 times tonight, but before that, did you know who your commissioners were? But they're the ones that are setting things like your speed limit, or what plants can grow at your library, or what you can do in your parks, or how your community is zoned. And so these are the people you need to be paying attention to, because they're actually getting work done. And so a way to think about this is the federal responsibilities. The federal government sets the guardrails. So I always use education as an example. Education, right? Like the federal government is just kind of telling people like basic educational standards that our children have to learn. They give minimal amounts of funding for this. The state doesn't have that much more responsibility either. They create the system of how to fund the schools. But at the end of the day, it's a local responsibility, right? Like they're the ones hiring and firing teachers. They're setting the overall budget. They're the ones that are adding more education taxes, right? So it kind of funnels all the way down. So just a reminder, because I constantly watch TV and realize that our actual elected representatives don't know this, but the legislative branch writes the laws. That's what they do, right? So the other day someone's like, who are we to tell the Environmental Protection Division what to do? And I'm like, actually, you're the legislative branch. That is your job. So they write the bills. So if we're going to, I'm just going to use taxes because we all understand. So they write the tax laws, right? So then the executive branch enforces the laws, right? And so for on taxes, they create the IRS to collect the taxes. Then the judicial branch interprets the laws. They tell us if that tax code is constitutionally appropriate, right? That's how the three branches work. So if you're trying to get the Environmental Protection Division to change the law, they can't, right? They're just enforcing the law. So you have to go back to the Georgia General Assembly to get them to do something. Or that's how it's supposed to work. Sausage. All right. So, but let's talk a little bit about Georgia. Oh, God. All right. So the Georgia General Assembly is meeting right now. There's the state Senate and the state House of Representatives. The upper house is controlled. The head of the upper house is the lieutenant governor, who is not elected by, right, you guys elected the lieutenant. Maybe none of you voted for him, but he is elected by the people of Georgia, whereas the head of the House of Representatives is the Speaker of the House, who is elected by his fellow representatives, right? So they're both serving 2-year terms. They're all up for election this fall, which is why all these crazy pants bait for all their people has been passed in the last 3 days. So just all spending bills have to originate in the House of Representatives, just like the U.S. House of Representatives. Okay, so our legislators meet in January through March. Today is sine die. It's the last day of the session. If things do not pass out of the House and the Senate today and make it to the governor's desk, they are dead because it is the end of the legislative year. So if you guys notice, there's this thing called crossover day. So crossover day usually happens about 2 months into the session, and that's when it has to make it out of one chamber and into the other, or it is effectively dead. It is not really dead because then they start just erasing things that have been in bills that have been passed and then just shove them on there on these things they call Christmas tree bills. But in general, that's how the calendar works. It always ends in time for the masters because the lobbyists are going to this is true, guys, right? Like they don't, I know you're all laughing, but you're like, this is Georgia. Just accept it. So in April is when they all nap and go to the masters, and then May through December is the time. So if you're trying to get something to happen at your state level, May through December is the time to reach out to your representative because they're not like panicked, right? Because they're trying to squeeze all this legislative activity into just January, February, and March. There are thousands of bills. It's like crazy town down there. And so if you're trying to get a new idea passed, the time to do it is May through December. Because the other, like, it's too late come January, right? January is when you're trying to just get them to vote yes or no on existing bills. Also, to note, we do not pay our representatives more than like $30K a year, so they all have jobs. So they are not full-time unless they are retired or independently wealthy. So they're all working their day jobs during May through December. Just a fun fact. Okay, so from a bill to a law, this is exactly how the Schoolhouse Rock song goes. It is 100% true. You guys were talking about it. It's on our website. It's true. I sing it all the time. But basically what happens is citizens talk to legislators. The legislators draft the bill, and then the bill ends up in either the House or the Senate, and then it goes through committee. and then it gets voted out of committee, and then it goes into rules, which is another place where it can stop. And so crazy things happen to get your bill out of the rules committee onto the House or the Senate floor, where it gets a full vote, and then it crosses over into the other chamber, and then the same thing happens over there, and then it goes to the governor, where the governor can veto it or not. And then if it's crazy and controversial, then someone files a lawsuit the next day. So it's happening. And so, but all right, so you guys are like, wow, that's a lot. Why do I matter, right? You matter because, like I said, it is crazy town down there, right? Like thousands of bills. So if and they assume when you have bothered to reach out to them that you represent hundreds of registered voters that are going to vote for them in November. So they usually listen to you. They might not actually take what you have to say seriously, but they do actually listen to you, unless they're insane, which would be like only 3 of them. Like I have met people, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is not at the Georgia General Assembly. So most of them are hardworking individuals that are honestly trying to do the right thing. You might not agree with what the right thing to do is and what they think the right thing to do is, but they will listen to you. They do work for you, right? You voted for them. So when you walk up to them and you're like, I really care about soil restoration, they're like, cool. Maybe a bunch of people in my district do, right? Like, what do you have to say about this, right? They're not experts on soil restoration. They're not experts on anything. I say that in like the nicest possible way. They're all real. Actually, half of them like run funeral homes, which is really weird because like, I guess it's like a low maintenance job that you can like take time off of, but like the number of undertakers that I have met is really high considering the number there are. So again, if you're an undertaker, you don't understand, well, you kind of understand soil restoration, but in like a different, I'm just on fire. I hope we're recording this. So anyway, so you really want to talk to them. They do honestly want to hear from you, unless they're jerks. And most of them are not. But like you're sitting here thinking, you're like, cool, there's 190,000 people in my senatorial district. Like how am I not Waldo in all this, right? You have to remember that they, like every other person on this planet, they actually care about themselves way more than they care about you, right? Like they're the center of your universe. And if they were going to do something that you thought was the right thing to do and they haven't done it yet, it's because they don't even know about it, or it isn't on their radar, right? They care about things that will get them reelected. These things are universal, right? You can make campaign speeches about health, housing, the economy, education. Who here thinks that like their representative wants to create jobs, right? Jobs, yeah. Safety and security and freedom and justice, right? If you can tie what you're doing for the children, and especially for Georgia, for the farmers, we all love our farmers in Georgia. It's like one of the greatest, right? Yeah, it's our biggest we love our farmers. And you guys are talking about soil health, right? So if you can tie it to either of these things, they will listen. All right, so that's cool. I've got you convinced that you're like ready to call your representative in May because it's too late for this session. But you want to make it personal. You want to make it polite. You want to be clear, and you want to have a specific ask, right? Because this is probably the most important thing to you, but this is one of like 100 things that they're going to hear about today. So how do you do that? First off, we're all scientists or science-friendly people. Do not start with the science, says the head of the science organization. Do not start with a story. Tell them a story. They will remember a story. They will not remember your random facts or that 90% of people, like they don't care about numbers. They don't care about figures, right? Don't try to convince them that climate change is happening if they're not already on that boat. Just like let it go, right? Start with a story, right? So you guys have this amazing, passionate story about, oh, like the landscaping at this library was hot trash, and now look, it's beautiful, and there's butterflies and bees, right? That's the time, and you can talk about people skipping through the flowers, right? Like they will remember that. So start with a story. And then remember your manners. I cannot, really be nice, right? Like they're people too. You may disagree with them on everything they have voted for this session, but at the end of the day, they might vote for the thing that you voted for, and they're also humans. So treat others the way you would like to be treated. And really, I cannot stress this enough. It is great to be passionate, but I need you to not be crazy. I have seen crazy, and it is not helpful or productive, right? So this nice guy here, you know, plastics are a danger to our environment. It breaks my heart to think of all the dying baby birds, especially when we could do these two simple acts and reduce our plastic use, right? This guy is super passionate. He cares very deeply about the birds. You're like, cool, I want to save the birds. This guy is crazy town, right? If we don't stop using plastics, all the baby birds will die and their deaths will be on your head. Your local representative did not wake up this morning with like his kid's pellet gun and start taking out birds, hopefully, right? So please don't get personal. Please don't attack people. That's not a good, just remember all the manners your mom taught you. And then really spell it out for them. I need you to do this. We need to do this, and this is how you're going to do it for me, right? So I need you to increase green space in the community by planting wildflowers at the library. Boom, done, right? Like, don't make them have to think about it at all, right? I want curbside composting, because, God, that would be awesome. So let's have tax incentives for that, right? I want to stop spreading harmful chemicals in the water, so I'm going to ban sludge dumping, right? Like, these are all things and a way to do it, right? You need to have only one solution. Okay, great. So this is it. So you're hyped up. You're ready to go, right? So I'm going to tell you how to send an email, which is the same way as how to make a phone call or how to have an in-person conversation. Oh my God, those colors. God, that's awful. What happened? All right, well, we're going to live with this. It's on our website. So if you're sending an email, you need to introduce yourself. Nothing gets you on a watch list faster than being an anonymous person, right? So you want to introduce yourself. You want to be like, hi, I'm Susie. Definitely say you live in their district, because they're like, oh, Susie's a voter. Then tell them a story about the issue, right? So, oh, this is so sad. My Aunt Louise lives near an unregulated tire dump. She has asthma now, and she can't work anymore, right? Like, ooh, they care. They care a lot about your Aunt Louise now. All right, give them 1 point. Please vote yes on bill blah, blah, blah. Its passage will ensure no more people end up like my Aunt Louise. Great, awesome. You've told them what to do. And then you can just be like, hey, you know, I voted for you last fall because you care about jobs, or I met you 3 weeks ago at my kid's baseball game, anything personal. So like I said, 1 point only, yes or no stance, and please sign your letter. No anonymous letters. Okay, other media, you can send them a postcard. If you care about this issue very deeply and you have a little bit of time, handwritten letters are super effective, because most people do not take the time to take out the piece of paper, write things on the piece of paper, and put them in the mail, right? Like they're still very touched by personal letters. You can call someone. You probably won't get on the phone with your representative, but you will reach their assistant, and you can tell them, I really want so-and-so to vote yes on this bill, right? And then, right, so if it's something that's happening right now, you got to send them an email or a phone. I don't know if people are using Twitter anymore, but is it even called Twitter? But letters and postcards are for things that you're okay with it being like a week because the mail system's kind of slow. So how is your letter received by the staff? If it's January through April, they're honestly just trying to figure out if you want them to vote yes or no on a bill. But otherwise, you can call. You can be like, hey, I went to this cool thing, and I learned all about green spaces, and I think we should be doing more things to support green spaces. Let's get together and talk about what we could do to support green spaces, right? Like, that's a thing that you can do in the off season because they're not just trying to frantically vote yes or no on bills. But again, be very respectful and passionate, but not crazy town. And so I'm going to tell you a story to get you all inspired. Yeah, I can tell you a story. It's story time. All right, so this is Paige. She was my intern in 2021. Paige wanted to solve an education problem around reading. I did not want to get involved in education because getting involved in education is like scary and there's lots of feelings. And everyone here went to school, so they all think they know how education works. But we did it anyways because she found me a ton of evidence and I was like, well, science. So reading proficiently by 3rd grade is really like an inflection point. If kids aren't reading by 3rd grade, it's just over. She worked really hard and she got March declared Georgia's Reading Month, right? So there we are at the Capitol getting, woo, right? Right? So, see, this is a feel-good story. And then we were like, cool, let's keep going, right? Like, we passed a resolution. So we got together and we had a panel about what are all the things facing our education and workforce. So we brought together experts. We got people from all over, right? So that's the former lieutenant governor. That's the head of the Chamber of Commerce, some academics, right? Like a bunch of important, fancy people saying things. And then I got a couple of them to sit in a room. I locked them in a room for 4 hours. And I was like, guys, what are 2 things that we can do to fix education? That's the little, but what can we do to get kids reading by 3rd grade? So we came up with an idea. And we also held a book drive because it's fun to give kids books. But we first passed a resolution and had a study committee about what the best thing, because the Georgia General Assembly loves a good study committee. So that's me testifying about it. And then finally some bills were written, right? And so bills were written, and so teachers in the state are being retrained between K through 3, right? Because of Paige, right? So I have like the best interns. They go on to do great things. So you can do this too, right? Like this is a thing, right? Paige was just my intern, and she made amazing things happen, right? So you also can make amazing things happen. A little bit closer to home. So in the back there, Patrick has a bunch of postcards that tell you how to effectively reach out to your legislator and remind you of how, so you can have one of those. And then some things, you guys were talking about this. So we're going to be at a GSU community garden on Tuesday the 9th. So you guys should sign up for that. It's open to the public. You can come learn about that the 9th. It's on our website. See, if you go there, scan it, you can go to our events page. It'll be great. And then on the 27th, we'll be running, we're working with some people to clean up the Ormwood Forest, which again, learning about invasive species and how to clear them out so they can regenerate that to native wildflowers. So you guys should sign up for some of these events. And if you follow that QR code, you'll also get our whole like how to advocate, some cheat sheets. And we are keenly interested in, if you have some burning environmental issues in your area, please scan this barcode up here and come talk to me about them, because we're starting to map that around the state. So we're running a whole environmental justice mapping project. So we need your contributions. Thank you. So you can learn about it here. You can ask any of us about that. So that is it, but you guys can change the world. It's possible. So go team.
All right, yep. So another round of applause for Amy. Thank you so much. All right, so we have some time for question and answers, so get those going. While you're getting those going, get your blue ticket out because I'm going to pull some prizes. We have some fantastic swag from Wild Hope. There's coffee cups, there's towels, there's sunscreen. I know. And there are going to be 4 winners, so. And also while you're waiting, there's going to be another QR code, and we'll send an email, a follow-up email too. We want to hear what you thought of this event. So if you scan the QR code, I'll also send it in an email. We'd love to hear what you thought. Okay. So the first one is 607-0163. Yay! Congratulations. All right, the next one will be 607-0161. Yay! Wow, congratulations. All right, 2 more. We've got 607-0166. All right, gentlemen in the front. Congratulations. All right, and the last one will be 607-0154. All right. Congratulations. Yeah. All right, well, I hope you found some good ideas about how you can make Wild Hope happen in Georgia. Does anybody have any questions for our panel or for Amy?
Well, I actually had a quick question for Amy, and then I had a question for the panel, if that's all right. So, Amy, you had mentioned the yes/no tally. If you let's say you have a friend and they are passing around a letter to sign, right? So, if you get a letter with like 20 signatures or something, does that count 20 times, or how does that work?
I love that very specific math question, Anand. That was great. Yes, so
Asking for a friend.
You're asking for a friend. No, for sure. If you have a letter signed by like 30 people or a petition that you bothered to go hand around, that is a powerful statement. Absolutely. There you go.
Alrighty, thank you. And then a question for the panel. So, based on the projects that you've discussed today, what kind of metrics do you use to gauge the success of your projects, and what kind of time window are we looking at? Like weeks, months, years, decades? Thank you.
I mean, that's an interesting question, and probably one that we should include in the way that we're kind of measuring our efficacy moving forward. I think in terms of the green hive, like this is very much like what it sounds like. We're hoping to grow a hive of people who will spread all of these skills and messages outward, right? So I think in terms of the green hive, we measure our success in terms of how scalable it is, right? In terms of spreading to other campuses, growing the sheer numbers of folks that are involved and invested in what's going on in their environment. So that's how, and in terms of something like what Miranda was discussing, we measure the efficacy of something like the library installations in terms of acreage converted, right? And so if we start with DeKalb County and we convert, how many was it? 72 acres in DeKalb County. Say then we're able to move to Gwinnett, then we're able to move to Fulton County. And we would measure in terms of square footage of things that have been converted from monoculture to productive urban landscapes, right? And so our kind of emerging motto for the foundation
is creating abundant ecosystems, 1 square foot at a time, 1 mind at a time. So we've got the green hive and we've got the productive urban landscapes model together. And then in terms of the growers program, I think like we were saying, like most landscaping organizations, especially if they're working for institutions or corporations, are required to do professional training, right? That's part of the deal of remaining certified and being able to continue to do your job, right? If we can get everybody doing our growers program and get attuned to the fact that they can do this in a different way, that's how we're going to measure the efficacy of the growers program, right? So that's my like sort of off the cuff response.
We certainly wanted to do more and want to do more, but it is extremely out of our price range. And some things that have happened that are very difficult to quantify are things like at the Clarkson Library, there used to be a lot of flooding. The productive urban landscape stopped that flooding. So how do you measure that? You have to bring a company in. They have to know all of the history of what happened to the building. It's a lot. And we have really been trying to narrow into that, but we just don't have the money right now. So we would like to add additional metrics, but that's where we are.
I will add one more thing. It's interesting, we're here with Science for Georgia, and there are interesting metrics we can follow, and carbon metrics are one thing, and we'll get into those details. Rodney and I, creating this transition plan for DeKalb County, we may talk about some of the carbon, sequestering possibilities for these landscapes, because they are counting carbon right now, and that is an interesting metric to have. And I think a lot of people are looking to that, especially corporate environments, Coca-Cola, Jamestown Properties. I've talked to both of those entities, and they are looking at counting carbon as a win for them. So
one more. Tag, I'm it. And one more thing, also the workers, right? This is a space where there's a high turnover. So are the employees more healthy if they start using electric equipment? Is there less asthma? Is there less hearing loss? Are there less appendages lost? I mean, seriously. Are they willing to stay and work for a long, long time? Is the quality of life better? So there's so many metrics to look at. That was such a great question, and we want to do them all.
Anybody else with a question? I'm going to double mic it right now.
So if you don't see yourself starting a hive but want to tap into one, is there resources available for landscapers, say, that have gone through these programs that you can hire for your property, for your business?
Yeah. Yeah, so since we started this whole movement, right, this whole movement was responsible for one of the first all-electric landscaping companies in DeKalb County. Right? And we got it right. And then my business partner had enough to do a desk job, so he's like, the hell with that, I'm going to become a landscaper. So he started a landscaping business called Greenbox Homes, a sustainable landscaping company. I think that is a really important thing. To have this movement to grow, we need to actually coordinate better and work better together. I've worked for a lot of nonprofits, and they are like very siloed, and they work in their own little, there's no mission creep or whatever. They want to stay in their own little lane. But one of the goals really is actually, that's why we're a foundation, is we want to end up bringing people together, and especially landscapers and people need to come together and give them, resource mapping and helping them build. Did I answer your question?
Well, I wrote down Greenbox Homes.
Yeah, that's my old business partner, Trace Crow. He's amazing. He's just a crazy wackadoodle. We call him the Wizard. He's like, he created the whole Fruitful Community brand, and now he's doing landscaping and being hired by HOAs to completely overhaul what they do as common space landscaping, changing over like mulch patterns, planting pollinator-friendly stuff. Yeah, it's great. Sure. I don't know if I can answer it.
I hope one of you guys can answer it because I can't answer it, so that would be awkward. So I hang out with people at the Capitol all the time that only care about money and jobs. So do you guys? Yeah. It's a great.
What makes the world go round?
I choke on my own vomit a lot. But anyways, so the question I have for you though is, do you guys have metrics around like what it costs to have an all electric landscaping thing, or kind of how it costs, like the cost benefit analysis? Yes, I know saving the world isn't good enough. So how much money are we saving, or what is the ROI on converting to like these, yeah.
That's a great question. Anyone?
The landscaping conference was talking about, typically speaking, at this point in time, the equipment necessary to build electric landscaping materials might be a little bit more higher up front, but over time you'll begin to see that cost decrease as you have less gas usage, less stoppage time to have to refill, and the batteries themselves have longer energy lifespans. So you're going to just continue to see all of those things become more and more robust and cheaper as the technology becomes more accessible to these companies.
Yeah, I worked inside of a company called Lawn Capital. I will holler their name, Lawn Capital. They switched to all electric. They ran the numbers on it. I watched all of their budgeting, and they were like, how can we not afford to go into this? And you're right. And it's because it's the status quo, and we're dealing with like gasoline, and it's like this huge antiquated way of doing things. And once you have those blinders on, you're so used to doing it that way, it's really hard to be innovative, right? But this landscaping company took one idea, one truck, and then before you know it, they were like 2 weeks in to rolling out this all-electric truck. They were talking about how can they implement 3 more. So now they're running 4 all-electric crews. And I think that an indicator, and I think that's the thing. It's got to be all about innovation. And you're right, money is the conversation. So when we talk about the fiscal benefits, the fiscal ROI, that's really all they care about. So when I, as a business owner for Roots Down, when I consult with organizations or companies or anyone in government, I mentioned the ROI. I mentioned the money, the fiscal, how much money you'll be saving if we just change. There's so much trash habits going on in the landscaping industry right now. You might as well just be throwing that money away. I mean, they're just, I see it. It's like, I feel like they're just blowing the money down the sidewalk, and it's like wasting our tax dollars. So I start there. I start with the money conversation because you're right. That's what pinches them.
I'd like to mention that particular company is going to have those numbers probably within a year because they're brand new. But also with Greenbox Homes, guess what? They don't even use electric. They are using just their hands. They're not using anything at all, and it is a successful model. They're doing very well, and it is leveling up consistently. So it's very interesting as we watch these different models, we'll have better numbers for you, but they are all new. So literally all of them are less than 6 months old, right, Jamie? Yeah, all of them are less than 6 months old. So we will have numbers for you next year.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Joy Orr, and I teach Christian ethics and environmental justice at ITC. It's a seminary on the west side. And this year we've been really drilling down and putting a lot of energy and effort into organizing houses of worship around environmental justice. So I'm actually wondering if your organization just works with libraries right now, or if you're interested in partnering with churches, synagogues, mosques, or any other houses of worship.
I will speak as the executive director of Fruitful Community Foundation and say we're definitely interested in partnering with anyone and everyone who is interested in becoming part of this new way of interacting with the environment. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I can also imagine faith-based green hive cohorts. You know, there are all sorts of ways we can imagine collaborating with any and all entities that want to do better and grow the next generation of eco-advocates in their community. So absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. Anybody else?
Oh, I'm stealing this too. Yeah, so Science for Georgia 100% wants to work with you. You should meet Michael, who happens to be sitting right next to you, who runs all our campus outreach. So 100% we want to work with the organizations that are in the community. We have this delightful EJ map that we need populated by people in the community. And we are running workshops and we are doing things. So we would love to work with you. And it's just fortuitous. You're sitting right next to Michael, who can make that happen. Totally threw you under the bus there, Michael.
Let me stand up so you can see me. Hi.
Hi.
The question I have is, you know, this pertains to the landscape businesses, but who's going to hire you? It's us, right? Some of the homeowners and other business people. So my question is, how do we as like individual homeowners get on this bandwagon too, to show that this indeed is something that our communities need to adopt? So how would you answer that? You're nodding your head, so I know.
I'm nodding because that is actually an awesome question and so near and dear to my heart. When I started the Growers program, this idea started as an idea in the city of Clarksville. I was working with then Mayor Ted Terry. And the idea was actually to start to humanize landscapers and start to connect them to the community in a way that hasn't been done. And it's through education. And the goal was to educate. The Growers program is an ethos for both homeowners, people that live in apartment complexes, people that live in our cities and everywhere. It's an ethos and it's a mind shift change and education basis that we want to create for you as much as, because you are the buyers and you're absolutely right. And I can tell you, working in property management, I used to work in property management, they're buying hundreds of thousands of dollars of landscaping maintenance a year, right? You guys are buying $500, $700, $1,000 worth of landscaping maintenance a year. It is important to educate you guys, management, right? Any stakeholder that is going to hire these people to understand, to get a better understanding of why we're trying to do this work. Because a lot of people, and I've met this all the time, and I know that some of the people here that work with me understand, like, they just think of a landscape as something just so passive, like just go out and mow it, just go out and blow it, leave me alone. I don't want to hear from you. Like, we went door knocking with that landscaping company, Lawn Capital, that I was working with, telling them about the electric services, and it was just so, they were just like, I don't want to even talk to you. Like, don't come to my door in your dirty pants. Like, there's a problem. Like, you guys should go out and give your landscaper a hug or a handshake or a burger or a milkshake or a water or something, because they're killing themselves, literally killing themselves to work on your yard. So once we build that capacity for understanding the important work that they're doing and we value them a little bit better, I think the work will change, right? So that's my 2 cents.
The Green Library tours are designed to help with that. If you are a homeowner and you want to understand what it takes and what you need to do, that is a space that you can go, ask your questions, learn, plant with them. From what I understand with Greenbox Homes, and we do have one of their employees who is also a Green Hive alumni. Becca, please stand up. She is a Green Hive alumni and is working with Trace from Greenbox Homes. Their motto is they work with the homeowners. Some homeowners do not want to touch the lawn. I would be one of those. I ain't got time for that. I'll take pictures of you, tell the story, try and make it happen. Others really want to be involved. They want to understand what's happening through the seasons. They want to watch their soil get healthier and healthier. They are tracking the amount of insects that are popping up. They're excited about that. They're like, yay, more worms. And if that's what you want to do, Greenbox Homes, with their approach, is very organic. They will start with you, showing you how to do it, and allow you to do it yourself afterwards. So there are different ways, but I would encourage you to check out the Green Library tours so you can start learning. And part of what the Fruitful Community Foundation is trying to do is have that information for you. However, we are a small organization, and it's a lot to put those types of resources out there. We are working on it, and there's a lot of organizations that have the information. But if you need that special touch and you'd like someone to hold your hand and specifically show you what to do in your yard, these are 2 ways that I know of that you could do right now. And once again, the first Green Library Tours is happening April 20th or 24th? April 20th at Chamblee Library. The next one will be at Clarkston, and there will be more. And these are in DeKalb County, but we would love to spread out and be in more places. So if you know of anybody that would be interested in this, please let us know. Because, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, I hope you're feeling inspired. Thank you again for coming. Thank you to the Fruitful Community Foundation. And thank you to Science for Georgia for all of their help today. There's so much information, so I'm going to pack an email and send it your way tomorrow so you can sort of like digest it tonight and then have some next steps. So thank you again for coming. Have a great night.